Hello and welcome to StarCast from Planet Waves. I'm Eric Francis Coppolino, your friendly neighborhood astrologer, here with a few thoughts about the current astrology to accompany the monthly horoscope for June 2024. That is the written piece today. I don't quite have it in me to write an article. There are just those weeks where I have to give my writing brain a rest. This is one of them. I will have some form of a monthly column next week, just one of the kind of wider perspective pieces that looks ahead. But that said, I will have some verbal notes for you today in audio format talking about the chart. And that chart mainly being the Sagittarius full moon that happened a few hours ago, earlier today, I guess sometime around maybe 10 or 9 o'clock Eastern time. That chart is posted, and I'll also include a link to it, but it's in various places if you're interested. And by the way, if there's ever a chart that I reference that I haven't posted, just please let me know in the comments. And also, I'm always up for discussion of astrology. I realize that these days in this kind of post-literate chaos, it can seem way too difficult to comprehend, but I promise you that astrology really is only working with concepts that you already know about. So I get a lot of different Substacks, this kind of integrated blogging platform, which you may be listening to this on. And one of them came in a few days ago, written by a writer who I think is actually a pretty good writer. Just judging on the columns that I've seen. And he led a column today called Fugazi Land. Fugazi is kind of Italian slang for it's phony. And the column begins, again, James Howard Kunstler writing, "Really, you must agree. Just about anything can happen now, and probably will, and possibly all at the same time. War, sickness, a disordered economy, chaos in money and finance, savages pouring across the open borders, assassination, mayhem in the streets, systems failure, mental illness everywhere you look. You have a sinister, blob-infested government acting like a desperate, cornered animal, fronted by a venal phantasm trailing a personal history of crime. What could go wrong? All of it." I think this is a fairly accurate, if slightly cartoonish, description of what most people see when they look around at the seemingly outer world around them. And most of the way that people see the outer world around them is by looking out this window called the internet. Comes through your phone, your desk, your tablet, whatever it might be, your toaster, your rice cooker. And the issue here that I'd like to raise is that most of us don't see much of this in the outer world. We may see bits of it. Mostly we see interpretations delivered to us through various media channels. These days, mostly videos, some written columns, a lot of short videos showing various forms of alleged insanity, and a little audio here and there. But video tends to get most of the attention, and video is discordant in that it is usually trying to present hot things in what is a cool medium, meaning that it is a multi-sensory medium. That's a cool medium that relies on two or more senses. That would qualify most digital devices are cool because not only do you look at them and hear them, you also touch them, which is a relatively new development, to be constantly interacting with a device by touch in the case of a touch screen. Now, in this paragraph, what we don't have is any reference point or mooring to inner existence. Everything is described as a seemingly outer experience, and the outer experience enters consciousness through a device, and the device is really presenting an inner trip that is disguised as some form of an outer trip. And so the internal reference point that we might have, in other words, how you actually feel rather than how you are provoked to feel, what you actually understand rather than what you are told you are supposed to accept and believe rather than understand, takes up all the space where your own honest inner response to something would happen. And you would be much more likely to have an honest inner response to something if you were responding to something that you were actually experiencing in the world rather than something coming to you through some form of a multimedia device. Now, I do a lot of media presentations. I work in essentially 4 different media: written, photographic, audio, and video. I don't really draw, but 4 is good. And one of the things that I am constantly mindful of is that when I go on camera, which I'm not in love with, or open up the mic, or write to you, or show you a photograph that I've created because it's something that I've seen, that I understand that I am temporarily taking over your inner voice. Voluntarily by you. No one's forced to read anything or watch or listen to anything that I do. You just choose to do it. And I'm not so sure that very many presenters understand that what they are actually doing, whether they intend to or claim it or understand or not, are taking over the kind of inner sanctum, the sensorium, the sensus communis of the person to whom they are speaking. I think a lot of content goes out, and there is no notion that what is called content is actually a kind of a seizure of the inner reality of the person experiencing it. Now, this raises a lot of questions. This opens up a lot of territory. Maybe there are some presenters who understand that they are captivating the inner audience, the inner mind of their audience, the inner sanctum, and use that as a means of manipulation in a kind of an instinctual way without ever having studied the idea that there is a power connection when you have someone's attention. And I would propose that as part of reclaiming inner space, that we strive to understand that what is being presented to us through these various high potency, high definition, light speed communication media devices is actually a kind of surrendering of one's inner experience to something coming in, And very often that something coming in is presented as if it is evidence of some objective reality in the outer world, when it is absolutely no such thing. Every last thing created in any medium is the product of the viewpoint of what I will reluctantly call the artist. And as part of what I am on about in this discussion, which is encouraging the reclaiming of your inner sanctuary, of your inner sensorium, your sensus communis, the place that all your senses enter. There's a lot of different ways to describe consciousness, and consciousness itself is elusive. It is difficult to pin down exactly what this is, and to understand, for example, the difference between your consciousness and your kitty cat's consciousness. There seems to be a difference, but what is that difference? Well, some would say the difference has something to do with this concept known as ego, the defined, correctly or not, sense of I am, and the acting through this I am. And the thing with the I am is that it tends to graft itself on to all kinds of things that it am not, but it thinks that it am. And so there is a lot of confusion between inner and outer. And all the work I do is designed to help reacquaint you with your inner territory in a time when there has been a vast externalization of inner consciousness, where everything seems to be going on outside, and where there has been this raid on inner awareness that is coming through all of this new media, which is in turn completely destabilizing of self-concept, of relationships, of our inner relationship, and many other things. So that by way of an essay, an attempt, that's what an essay is, to try. I write a lot of essays, and I'm aware that in each one, I'm going to try to say something that maybe I've said before in a different way, or maybe I haven't said it. Maybe I'm going to develop a theme. That is what I hope to do. So let's talk a little bit about this chart. I describe it in the immediately previous edition of StarCast. I think that came out on Tuesday night, a couple of days ahead of the full moon. I'm looking at a chart for right now, 1:33 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We're about, at the time of this recording, about 1 degree of longitude past the full moon. So the sun is at 3:04 Gemini, and the moon is at 4:53 Gemini. That's a few hours. That's 2 hours approximately. The moon moves 1 degree every 2 hours approximately, pretty consistently. There are times it moves a little quicker and a little bit slower depending on how close it is in its orbit, apogee or perigee, but about 1 degree per 2 hours. Okay, and in this chart, there is this absolutely beautiful aspect that I have described in a short letter at the top of the horoscope, and then also described at some length in Tuesday's edition, but I'll talk about it again. And it is the 3 rulers of Pisces, the modern, the classical, and the exalted ruler. Pisces, Venus, exalted in Pisces, Jupiter, classical ruler of Pisces, Neptune, modern ruler of Pisces, and they are all collected at the very end of the degrees of their sign. Neptune, somehow, in this way that really only Neptune can do, snuck out to the very last degree of Pisces when no one was looking. I still remember watching Neptune slowly inch its way across Aquarius, wondering when that was going to end. And that ends around the 2012 era. While we're talking about Neptune in Pisces, events, positions, Neptune. And by the way, it's my view that astrology itself is a visit to a collective dream. Astrology implies astral, which implies the dream plane. And while we can go a little bit deeper than astral, the implication is that we're kind of gazing into a dream that we can all dream. And then the question is, what is the interpretation of that dream? So Neptune first enters Pisces on April 4, 2011, and then it retrogrades back into Aquarius on August 4th, 2011, and then it enters Pisces to stay on February 3rd, 2012. And now, speaking to you on the 23rd of May, 2024, about 12 years later, Neptune has covered every single degree of Pisces. Because it's in the last degree, it's going to be hanging out there for a bit until March of next year when it finally dips into Aries for the first time. And that is a big deal. Any slow-moving planet reaching Aries is a big deal. So 2025 is the transition year of Neptune going from Pisces into Aries. And boy, is there a lot here. But I think that with the digital realm, and the digital realm being the main arbiter of consciousness right now, we would be very wise to study this kind of massive collective dream that we have been dreaming here in the peak of the digital age, represented by Neptune in Pisces. And so, in any event, in today's chart, Neptune hanging out in the last degree of Pisces, where it will soon go retrograde, is met by a conjunction of Venus and Jupiter, the in classical astrology, the greater and lesser benefics. If you use those terms, I don't really use them very often, but that's what they are, forming a meeting in the last degree of Taurus, sextile Pisces. That is just something interesting. And that is, I think, it is a description of something almost intangible that is accessible, but it is like anything in the last degree of a sign, a thing in transition, which means a thing in motion. But we get this beautiful moment happening right now as I'm speaking, accented by the presence of the full moon. So that's a divinatory chart. It's like, that's a chart you can hang on to and read for a while. Well, this is describing the changes of our times. Neptune changing signs, well, that happens next year. We're only a year out from that. Jupiter changes signs in a few days and enters Gemini and joins Sedna, which arrived in April. And Venus moves fairly quickly, and that will be probably entering Gemini overnight, joining the Sun and Sedna, and then joined by Jupiter, and then soon by Mercury. And so this is going to be a big Gemini season. Okay, so those are my thoughts. I'm recognizing that I can be a little bit circumspect in my approach to astrology. And before I go, here are my thoughts on that. People tend to take away from any experience of reading or cinema or looking at a photo what they take away from it. And it's different for everyone. And when I'm reading astrology, all I really want to do is to make the symbols in the dream a little more accessible and a little more vivid than they would be if you're just staring at a chart with this feeling that I cannot read this thing. This is what most people feel when they look at a chart. I can't read this thing. And so you really have to want to read it to read. It is like Mark Knopfler, who I consider to be the only honest guitar player in this sense. He said, "It's not easy to make your fingers do what you want them to do. You have to really want to play the guitar to be able to play the guitar." And it is exactly the same with the kind of chromatic 12-note scale known as astrology. But I recognize it's difficult for people to learn, but they want something from it. So what I do is I spin the chart up into 3 dimensions, into 4 or more dimensions, and into a kind of an imagistic and thematic space. But I really want to leave you a lot of room to come to your own observations and your own conclusions. And as I said at the outset, I am open to any discussion astrologically. There is so little now. Things usually are just accepted. But while we're here, let's talk about it. I'm always curious your thoughts, your responses, and very often I will take an idea that a reader sends in and think, this is nifty. I'm going to run with this. Let's try this. Let's make an essay. Let's unfold this a little bit and see what is there. All right, one house announcement. I am not planning a Planet Waves FM this week, possibly not next week. I need a break from that. That's part of my break from writing an essay today, having to go through that whole process of focusing my mind for 2,000 words and illustrating it and all of that stuff. I need to do a little bit of filling up the coffer. All that I offer through my Aquarius moon, Aquarius Saturn. And so there are those times in the lives of people who give a lot out that they need to refill a bit, and I'm in one of them now. I'll catch you a little bit further on down the road, probably sometime early next week. I'm aware it's a holiday weekend. I hope you get to chill out, or if you prefer, work overtime. And I'll leave you on that note. Signing off from Kingston, New York at 1:43 p.m. on May 23rd, 2024. I'm Eric Francis. Lots of love, and bye for now.